Hey everybody, welcome back to Tim Travels. It's Terry, your host. So I'm coming to you from the parking lot of probably my favorite place to stop in terms of businesses. Not necessarily this location, although this location's fine, plenty of truck parking. But I'm at a Kwik Trip in Clinton, Iowa. And for those of you unwashed masses who don't have a testimony of Kwik Trip, they're fairly common in the upper Midwest, Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin, and they are probably the best place that a trucker can stop unless you want, like really cheap diesel fuel from the app or whatever. But the one thing I love about Kwik Trips is they usually have pretty decent sized parking lots. In fact, some of them have enormous parking lots. Like I've never seen the parking lots full. There's one in Toma, Wisconsin, where 94 and 90 split, a huge parking lot. I actually did a 34 there one time. But the nice thing about Kwik Trips is that they almost always, even the smaller ones, have a little bit of truck parking. And they have all the amenities that truckers would want. Of course, they have diesel fuel, but most of them have showers. They're very clean. But the thing I like the most about them is for a truck stop or a convenience store, they have a lot of really great food options. They have a lot of fresh food, kind of, pizza, fresh fried chicken, salads, mayonnaise kind of salads too. They have, the standard burgers, stuff like that. But they also have tons of different kinds of baked goods. They have fresh fruits and vegetables. I just bought some bananas here, but they have potatoes. They have, I saw in there pears, apples, a lot of different stuff. They have a good selection of general grocery items, canned goods. I also bought a jar of peanut butter. And the best thing about it is that they have a great selection, but their prices are not like truck stop prices. In a lot of places, the Kwik Trip, like I've been to Kwik Trips out in the middle of frickin' nowhere in Wisconsin, like 2 roads cross out in the woods basically, and all that's there is the Kwik Trip. So I think for a lot of people, it's like the local close grocery store. They have fresh meat. They just have a great selection of things. And if you have a fridge and a microwave on your truck, you'll be all set. They have a lot of frozen food selection. And so it's a great place to stop to get healthier choices and just variety. You can get a burger if you wanted a Kwik Trip, but in this particular one, there's a Burger King across the parking lot if you like Burger King. But anyway, so I'm at Kwik Trip in Clinton, Iowa. Now, I took the back roads. I stopped last night at the Loves in Utica, Illinois, but I took the back roads to get out here because I'm going up to Cedar Falls. And I'm pretty familiar with Iowa and some of the back roads. I've ridden my bike across the state a couple times. And I just like this part of the country. But I drove through Mendota, Illinois, which is the home of the Sweet Corn Festival. And I drove close to Dixon, Illinois. Now, Dixon, Illinois is where President Reagan grew up. He was born down the road in a smaller town called Tampico, but he grew up basically in Dixon. You could visit the house he grew up in there, and he lived there basically till he was like 22, till he had finished college. He went to Eureka College, which is also in Illinois. But then, when he hit 22, I guess he moved out to the West Coast and to carry out his destiny of being, in a movie with a chimp. But, and by the way, I liked Reagan. I voted for him twice. My opinions about his presidency have changed over time. But I will say this: I think he was he was wrong about some things, but he was right about a lot of things. And one of them was, I will say that the U.S. military buildup really did kind of put the Soviet Union under. It took a little bit longer until George Bush was president in '89 when the Berlin Wall came down. But a lot of that groundwork was laid by Reagan. And you could even go back even farther, go back to the Eisenhower administration, and we were slowly but surely grinding the Soviet Union down with our economic power and our ability to continue to basically win an arms race. But anyway, so that's where Reagan grew up. But I said I'm here in Clinton. Clinton, Iowa is, of course, named after DeWitt Clinton. And so is the nearby town of DeWitt, Iowa, also named after DeWitt Clinton. DeWitt Clinton, everybody knows that he's a household name. But if you're, again, just not up on your history, he was the 6th governor of the state of New York. Now, you say, well, why is this dude have 2 different towns in Iowa named after him? And I don't know the exact answer, but he was an important person. Certainly, there's a lot of places named Clinton, and a lot of them are named after him. And there's a few places named DeWitt that are named after him. So he was one of the early, people in the Republic that mattered a lot. And so it, that's why things ended up getting named after people. And it may have been that people that settled this part of Iowa in the probably 1820s, 1830s. I'd have to check on that, but they may have been from New York State. And Clinton was highly thought of. So there you go. I talked about Schuyler Colfax and stuff that was named after him in Nebraska. Again, a New Yorker. So anyway, so that's what I'm doing here on my way up to Iowa, up to Cedar Falls, not Cedar Rapids, Cedar Falls, which is farther north on the Cedar River. So I wanted to talk a little bit today because some people ask me, I've had a lot of conversations with people about lease versus company, advantages, disadvantages. And I'm not here to sell you on one or the other, but I am here to tell you some differences that may be important in the long run to you. Now, let me first preface this by saying that at Prime, there is not a huge penalty, if you will, or any at all, actually, if you decide to come to Prime and go company. Because after you've been company for a short period of time, and if you came as an A seat, I don't know that they wouldn't let you do this at any point, but you could switch over to lease, or you could switch over to purchase. But let's say that you're just a new driver in the industry. Now, I will tell you that I drove at 3 different companies as a company driver. And for quite a while, I kind of eschewed the idea of having a lease. Because one of my issues with the lease was, when I go home, I still got to make a payment, right? Like the clock's still ticking, the cash register's still ringing. And that is certainly true. When I went home and I parked that truck, I didn't have to worry about anything. I wasn't paying a payment on the truck. I wasn't paying a payment on an APU. I wasn't paying for insurance, registration, any of that, because there's a daily cost. This truck costs money every single day, whether it's moving or not, whether it's making $1 or not, it's costing money. So, that was one of the things that was kind of a negative to me about leasing on with a company. And so, I definitely thought about that. One of the other advantages to being a company driver is something happens, it's not on you, right? I mean, unless you wreck, of course, or you get a, ticket. But I'm saying you break down, you have a flat tire, hey, you just call somebody, they're supposed to come take care of it, right? You don't get a bill, you don't care, none of that. Excuse me. There are benefits to being a company driver. When I say benefits, I mean actual benefits. Like if you need health insurance, maybe being a company driver is the best choice for you. I am one of those people who is fortunate that I have socialized medicine, and I love it. I have I have a pension from having been in the military, but I also have really dirt cheap health insurance that's worth probably more than my pension. Members of my family have had surgeries and expensive medical procedures over the years. Not terrible stuff, but certainly stuff that would have cost me an arm and a leg, or would have, I would have had some enormous deductible or something that I never had to deal with. So health insurance has never been a concern for me, like some other people. And, it's a big concern. It's terribly expensive for some people. And so that may be a consideration. Other benefits, like, they're like, oh, we give you life insurance. I got to tell you this, the life insurance that trucking companies give to their employees, they pay for it. They actually don't pay for it. It is so cheap that the insurance company gives it away, right? $15,000 of coverage is freaking chump change, okay? It is cab fare. The actual insurance company does not charge for that coverage to the trucking company. Why? Because it's so insignificant. It's like a company that gives away like pens, okay? Or some other tchotchke, frisbees or magnets for your refrigerator. That's how insignificant it is. The reason they do it is because they want access to that pool of drivers, that pool of employees, for other reasons, like selling them health care, selling them additional insurance, right? Disability insurance, all that stuff. So, and or just having like contact information that's valuable. Because then if they get you to fill out that life insurance form, they find out information about you, your family, all that stuff, how much you make. That's all data that's valuable to them, right? And you say, well, if I die, they got to pay out $15,000. So what? If you don't die, they got to pay out nothing, and they got all this benefit. That's why they do that. So, to me, the benefits were good. I had a 401k when I was at GP Transco. GP put in money every month, just like I did. It was a good benefit. A 401k is a good benefit, okay? But it's not the be-all, end-all. And let me say this about 401ks. A lot of people talk about retirement and this and that. Let me just disabuse you of the notion about retirement. If you don't have a pension where you contributed almost nothing to it and your company kicked in all these years that you worked for them so that you could retire in comfort, it's not retirement. You're just quitting work, okay? And you're getting something that you paid a lot of money into, like your 401k, right? It's, if you think about it, right, like people want to call it retirement. Like guys, when I was at Estes, people would be like, oh, so-and-so's retiring. I'm like, really? He's getting a pension? That's cool. And they're like, no, we don't have pensions. Well, I'm like, well, he's not retiring. He's just quitting work and using the money he saved up and the company, put some money into, and a lot of times companies pass on the costs, the administrative costs of that 401k to their employees. And while I am an advocate for 401ks because there's not a better vehicle to save with pre-tax. And by the way, I had a Roth 401k, so it's not even pre-tax. But it is a way to put away a lot of money pre-tax. That's an advantage. But it's not like a pension. I have a pension from the government. I never paid one dime into it. And since I retired from the Navy, it's paid me more money than I ever earned in 20 plus years of active duty. Okay, that's a pension. That's how you retire. So keep in mind that when you talk about company drivers and stuff like that, there are benefits, there are advantages to that lifestyle. That I shouldn't say that lifestyle, that's selection, right? There are benefits. Another benefit to being a company driver is, and you know, people say this, I think it's maybe overstated a little bit. People say, oh, well, you get to learn on somebody else's dime. Well, sort of that's true, except that it's also your dime if it takes you an hour and a half to do something that a more experienced driver would do in 20 minutes. And let's be candid, new drivers take longer to do stuff. Just even like, I'm not bragging, I just kind of move pretty quickly sometimes. And I can remember like co-drivers saying, man, you walk really fast, or like when I had Connie on the truck, Connie always wanted to get out. She was a great student because she always wanted to get out and see everything I was doing. The problem was sometimes I would literally drop a trailer faster than she could get out and get around the truck. Because I just, you know, it's like I pull the brakes, I'm out the door, you know, I'm cranking it down, pulling the pin, putting the lines away, and then I'm walking back to get in the truck and she's coming around the truck or whatever. It's not like I'm Superman, but I just kind of got it down to a science, and I got, you know, unless I get a curveball, it goes quickly. You know, so sometimes you're learning on your own dime. Let's be candid, because, you know, if the company said, oh, well, we pay everybody $10 to drop a trailer. Well, you know, even if you were getting paid for it, if it took you twice as long as somebody else, then you were getting half as much money. So your dime was actually a nickel. So, you know, but those are a lot of the advantages of being a company driver. You know, people take care of you. You kind of get babysat sometimes, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you know, and I've stated in other videos why I wanted to come over and lease/own. So let's talk about that for a second. Now, everybody knows all the negatives about leasing, right? You kind of, you know, you got to drive. But that's true on the company side. You don't drive, you don't make any money. Maybe you don't make the payment on a daily basis, but if you're not driving, you're not making any money either. Let's be candid, because you work by the mile, okay? And yeah, you might get some paid vacation, but you know, I get to take vacation whenever I want. And that's one of the things that I have really enjoyed about leasing at Prime. If I tell my fleet manager I'm going home for 10 days, not for 1 second does that guy consider telling me I can't. He might, well, maybe he does, but he's not going to say it out loud. But I can tell you that in, you know, like, I don't know how many months I drove company, but at 3 different companies, I can't ever recall taking more than maybe 7 straight days off. The only time I took more than like 5, usually more than about 5 days off, was in between jobs, right? Like it's just not a thing. Like I remember when I first went to night, you know, they were like, well, you get 1 day off for every week that you're out. I said, well, what if you're out 6 weeks? And they're like, yeah, you only still get 4 days. Okay? And my fleet manager never held me to that. If I said, oh, I want to be home for 5 days, he wouldn't say anything. But try in your first year telling your fleet manager, if you're a company driver, that you want 10 straight days off. That might not be a conversation that turns out the way you had hoped. And if it does, then that's great. Maybe that's a great, you know, driver manager, fleet manager, but that's not the industry standard. I can tell you that for certain. So I like the fact that if I say, hey, I'm parking this truck, nobody says anything. You know, I like the fact, now by the way, I could refuse loads when I was at night transportation. I worked for another company that said, if you refuse a load, we'll turn the truck off and you'll walk home or whatever. But you know, I never did refuse a load at night, and I had my reasons for not. And I've kind of alluded to that in the past too, but basically I didn't feel like it was good for my career. Not that they would take it out on me. I just felt like if I always took loads, my fleet manager would take care of me. And I think I was right about that. I had a great fleet manager and I got a lot of good loads. Sometimes I'd take a load that was not, other guys would have refused. I was like, wow, I don't give a shit, I'll drive. But I like the fact that I can say no to a load. I can say no for any reason. Now, they do ask me what the reason is, but you know, I don't have to give them a reason. I mean, I do, just because I don't want to appear to be recalcitrant or intractable. And so, you know, I tell them, oh, I don't want to go to this place for this reason. Then typically they'll, like, you know, adjust what they try to give me for that reason. Communication is important in both, whether company or lease, so they kind of know what you like to do, and they'll try to help you. But I like the freedom that I have with lease, and I have been able to make good money as a lease operator and put myself in a position to take more time off. And that's really what I was looking for. I said when I came to Prime, if I only earned the same amount of money that I earned at GP Transco, which was over $80,000 a year, but I got to take twice as much time off, then I would be happy. Because if you think about it, the more time you take off, right, the more value, you know, if you make $80,000 a year and the total amount of time that you take off during the year is 36 days, right? Well, then if you go to another job and take, you know, let's say 72 days off a year and still make the same amount of money, what it means is you work less and make more. That's no different than going to a job that instead of paying $18 an hour, pays $24 an hour. You got a pay raise, okay? Because if you agree with the concept that time is money, then that means the more time off you can take and still maintain the same earnings, the more you're making. You know, too many people are focused on the bottom line. And trust me, I've made lots of money over my adult life. But I also, you know, I've matured enough to realize that it's not all about the money. And, you know, and I don't know who said it, but I've heard this saying, and it's so true. Nobody on their deathbed has ever uttered the words, man, I wish I'd have just worked more days. I wish I would have earned more, right? I wish I would have spent more time at work instead of with my wife and kids and family and friends. Nobody says that. So I know it now. I'm gonna apply it now. You know, now don't get me wrong. You gotta be out on the road to make a buck over the road, regardless of whether you're a company, lease, an owner, operator, whatever you are. At the end of the day, the secret to making money in trucking is to drive a truck, right? It's not sitting at home. It's not complaining about stuff. It's just get out on the road and turn the wheels. But the thing I like about leasing is the independence it gives me and the control that I have. One last thing about leasing, and this will come back to like how you structure an entity before you lease. But there are a lot of tools that a business owner has to take money that's revenue and shunt it into things as a business expense that ultimately will benefit the owner directly. I'm talking about different kinds of investment options like SEP IRAs, SEP IRAs, you can put a ton of money away, and it can come, all of it, not a dime from the individual, all of it straight from the company. One of the only requirements for a SEP IRA is that all employees, right, and this is great if you're an employee, a W-2 employee like I am. I have a salary. I can put a very high percentage of my salary into a SEP IRA. And when I say my company can put a very high percentage of my salary into a SEP IRA. And as long as all employees are pari passu, which means they're treated equally, right? I can put that money away. I can wait till the end of the year, and I could be like, oh, my salary, let's say, I don't even know what my salary is, but let's say my salary is $80,000 a year. If I have money laying around that I don't want to roll over and I don't want to take as income and get taxed on it, or taxed at the corporate level, I could say, oh, well, 25% of my salary is $20,000. I'm going to take $20,000 and put it into that SEP IRA. Now, if I have another employee, I also have to put 25% of their annual salary into a SEP IRA for them. But here's the thing on that SEP IRA, that vests immediately. If a company puts money in that, it vests immediately. Now, obviously, my wife and I kind of control the company anyway, but my point is, you can stash a lot of money. Another great way to stash money is with insurance products, right? I have plenty of insurance. I'm getting more. Why? Well, some of my insurance is going to term out. That's one reason. But the other reason is I can take hundreds and hundreds of dollars a month, thousands of dollars a year, and put it into an insurance policy that the company pays for, but which will benefit me in the long term because it also has a cash value. And I've talked about insurance. I'm not going to get way into that, but there are just a number of ways that businesses can pay for things that benefit employees and are legitimate business expenses. And that's not going to be an issue, but it's also not going to be a benefit for company drivers. So those are some of the advantages, and that's some of the thinking that I've had on this over the years. And there is nothing wrong with being a company driver at all. I did it for quite a while. And I understood what the value of that was and what it gave me. But I was ready to go a different route and take on additional responsibility, but also, to me, get additional benefits, with a small b, I guess you'd say. So anyway, I hope that was helpful. But if you got questions, just shoot them to me and I'll try to answer them. I don't like to answer specifics a lot of times because everybody's situation is different. And like I've said this in the past, I strongly recommend getting professional advice. I strongly recommend getting a good accountant, a good financial advisor, and if you need it, a good attorney. And by the way, let me just say this about professionals. Never get an accountant that's also your financial advisor, or never get an attorney that's also your accountant. You want to hire different people. Why? Checks and balances, okay? I've been an attorney and I've been a financial advisor, okay? But you want to have different people because, candidly, you want to have oversight. I think it's really, really not very ethical that you'll have accountants who do people's taxes and then, say shit like, oh, well, you know what? If you throw a bunch of money into an IRA before April 15th, or I think this year it was April 17th, I can get you a bigger refund. And by the way, I can set that IRA up for you. That's that's mixing oil and water to me, and I don't like it. I don't think it's ethical. And you really should. And by the way, some big companies like H&R Block were kind of doing that, where they'd be like, oh, hey, we if you put this refund into an IRA, you'll get this tax break, and you know, it's just, I mean, I do think it's good to invest, but you could invest directly really easily. So don't mix oil and water on the advisors and stuff. Get separate people. That's just my professional advice. Yeah. So anyway, thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you soon. Looks like I already got a pre-plan, so I'm gonna drop this load up in Cedar Falls tonight. Gonna hang out with my son for a little bit, then I'm gonna grab a load of some kind of animal flesh here in Iowa and take it out to Colorado, and working my way back out west so I can get my new trainee on the truck. So talk to you soon. Bye.